Hey, Femme. We are wrapping up this season almost. We're getting close to the end. But we're really excited that we've been able to bring this many seasons to you guys. And this was a great start to 2022. Like, we've had some really awesome guests. And this guest came to us through her PR team, essentially. And
Shout
she
out to Accolade PR.
Yes. And she is a director who I'm going to tell you exactly what she's done, who she is. But we became aware of her through her film A Banquet, which is her first feature. And guys, it is awesome. It is a
Mm.
super suspenseful psychological thriller that just really keeps you guessing the whole time of what's really going on in the story. So we really both enjoyed it. And at the end of the episode, you will hear where you can find it and watch it yourself, because by the time this episode is released, it will be available all throughout the US. So on
Yes.
that note, today's guest is Ruth Paxton. She's a Scottish filmmaker who graduated in 2007 with an MA in Film and TV from Screen Academy, Scotland, having gained her honours degree at Edinburgh College of Art. Her award-winning shorts have been exhibited and nominated in competitions at numerous international events and prominent film festivals. She is the winner of Best Woman Director at the 12th London Short Film Festival for her film Pulse, and nominated one of Canongate Book's 40 Scottish Storytellers of the Future. Artist anticipated to dominate the next 40 years of creative life in Scotland. In 2019, Screen Daily featured her as one of the 6 emerging Scotland-based directors you need to know. A Banquet, as I said, is Ruth's debut feature, a psychological horror produced by T-Shot Productions and Riverstone Pictures. The film is represented by Hanway Films and was recently acquired by IFC Films for North America. It was selected for the Great 8 Showcase at Cannes March, presented by BFI, BBC Films, and the British Council, and will have its world premiere at Toronto International Film Festival 2021 in the Discovery section. So she has been a busy bee. She has accomplished a lot before this film came out. So we really got to talk to her about like what goes into the storytelling and the psychology of her films and her style and how she makes it work with the people she works with. And it was a really insightful episode. I mean, I would love to work with her in the future. I think she just is, and she sounds like a really awesome director on set to be involved with.
Yeah, that was what was, I feel like, the coolest part is having watched her film beforehand and then actually getting to hear her vision, her voice, and who she is as a human.
Mhm.
So if you guys get a chance to watch the film then after, it just like makes you appreciate her work even more because she's just so lovely and so deep and like really has a strong, clear voice.
Mhm.
So she's super awesome. I completely agree with everything Tessa said. I feel like the same. So I think you guys are really going to just get to, it's just so cool. It's just so cool to hear like a director break down like their process and the language that they speak and use on set. And I feel like for independent filmmakers, especially, you guys will get to like resonate probably more so with her words and how she is as a director. So
Especially if
he,
you are more of the creative mind than the technical mind. We talk about that a little bit in the interview too, of,
yeah.
that she approaches things from that creative storytelling, psychological, what's underneath view way more than the technical, we should be using these lenses and frame in this way view, which, like, of course, you need to know a little bit of both. Like, if you're going to be successful, you need
Yeah.
to understand both worlds. But personally, I resonate a lot more with the creative side of it. So I just love that. And I love that she's making great films from that perspective. So, yeah.
I agree. Miss Ruth Paxton, y'all.
Yeah, start from the beginning, like where, how you got started, what has brought you to this point, just, your story, your journey.
My journey. Well, it's funny because I think like you get asked a lot, or I have been asked a lot recently, when I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I don't remember making the decision.
Mhm.
I think that I what I've noticed, or what I'm aware of now in retrospect, is that my family watched a lot of movies, that, you know, maybe more than the average family. And I think, you know, it was just a huge part of our growing up. My brother is also a filmmaker, and so, you know, it was our kind of lives were structured around what movies we were going to watch at night, or what movies we were going to go and see at the cinema at the weekend. So I think it's safe to say we were both quite cine literate kids. And then, you know, I kind of always knew I wanted to do something creative. And I think, you know, I remember when I was wee, I used to say that I wanted to be Vincent van Gogh, and I don't really know what that meant. I think he just understood he was an artist, or had been an artist. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a natural born storyteller. I know that. Like, I can say that without feeling pretentious about it, just because I can see now that I was always interested in how things worked and how relationships worked and why people did the things they did. And I think, you know, maybe like as a younger adult, I'm a person with a mood disorder. I've got chronic anxiety, and I go through bouts of depression. And I think for me, the best thing I could do to help myself with that at the time was to try and understand how your brain works, really, and how, you know, how we live in this world. And all of that, I think, is really cinema to me. It's I think cinema is a very psychological medium, regardless of the genre. And so, you know, trying to work out how best to live, I think for me, a big part of that is in storytelling and unpacking stuff, and, you know, looking at the human race, I guess. So there's that. And then I went to art school. I kind of knew I wanted to go to art school rather than like do a film theory course. So I went to Edinburgh Art College, where my mum had been as well. So I knew it quite well. And I did film there, but it was a very different route into film compared with, say, a more practical or film focused undergraduate degree. I always say that art school taught me a way of thinking. Like, I definitely didn't come out employable. There's no question. And I'm not a technical director. So when we were making student films, I was never, on the technical side. If I was collaborating with others, it was on the design or the costume, or the aesthetics of it, that side, rather than the technical. Like, still woefully lacking when it comes to understanding how cameras work. But they definitely.
No, but that's awesome. People sometimes get scared in that, like, oh, I need to be perfect and know all the technical lingo. Like, girl, call it whatever it is. Like,
Well, it's taken a while. I really, for a long time, I felt, I guess, quite ashamed and quite concerned about my lack of technical aptitude. And I'm really lucky in that I've worked for a long time with the same cinematographer who speaks a different language to me about how we want to put our images on screen, rather than talking about lenses or frame rates and ratios and all that stuff I can't even pull out to sort of make an example of now.
It's hard.
It's I think you find as well, I mean, this could be a general, it's not absolutely true, but you do find, I think, in growing up, like in the industry, that it seems to be that you get directors that are very, very technical. And I would say that the majority of those tend to be men. I mean, not necessarily at all across the board, but I just think, like, I think I was intimidated by that. And I remember if we were, if any kind of like learning opportunities, like workshops or skill set environments where, you would get directors coming to speak to you, which were by and large men, they talked very technically about making films. And it made me feel like, I feel like I'm a bit of a charlatan here. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I have endeavored to learn. My DP, who is a brilliant friend, tries hard to get me to understand it. It doesn't stay. I can learn for the minute and I'm like, right, okay, exposure. And then it's just gone. I'll remember what you were wearing when I first met you, but that stuff won't stick.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at peace with it now, partly because we've made this feature and it worked. So, whatever language I'm speaking seems to work. But I think, I'm really conscious that I don't know if I'd have the same relationship with another cinematographer. I would be quite intimidated by that. But
no,
I'm
that's
sure
really interesting. And like, I feel though your job though as the director still is to care mainly about the story, like number one. And how do you feel, how do you go about then communicating that with your cinematographer? Because I'm sure like myself, who is stepping into the director's role, I'm the same way. I've done my research and will continue to, but I don't know how much of that's going to stick, like to your point. So and I'm fortunate to know like some good cinematographer friends that I feel like I can be candid about that. But for our listeners, like, is it just finding that right relationship, or what's been your best communication style to like achieving like the story that you want to tell, I guess?
Well, I think the relationship with David, who is the cinematographer that I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
let's talk about David.
David.
Hey, David.
Well, David's I say this all the time, but he's a genius. He really is. And I think that, it is very unique. We've been making work for over 10 years. So we have an incredibly swift shorthand when it comes to, I guess, taste and preference, and our reference materials are always very, like, he knows what I like, he knows what I'm not gonna, he knows what's going to make me tick, I think. And he's very collaborative. He's a wonderful storyteller. So, while he's very smart and knows his tools, he's first and foremost a storyteller, and that's that's what I get off on about his brain. So I think, I don't know, I mean, I think, it's a really hard example. I mean, with Dave, because I don't have any reference, I don't have experience of doing it. People really, I mean, that's not entirely true. I have worked with other DPs, but not on narrative drama, not on, like the stuff that I feel is really my voice, like maybe on gigs for hire and TV and stuff like that, but that's a different world.
Right.
So I think really the best way to communicate visually is to share visuals, really. So it's like, Dave and I talk a lot about, like, we, most of our prime focal references for films are paintings, and there's a lot of painters, contemporary and classical, who we always fall back on and kind of are the basis for the look that I like in general. But I think what we tend to do, and what we've done for years, is talk about why we like the painting. So it's that thing of unpacking it and going, it's not just like the color palette or the tones, it's about the feeling it invokes, and how do we translate what that feeling is onto the screen. So we speak a lot in feelings. We talk a lot about really existential stuff. Pretty much every conversation we has descends into talking about death. And I'm not even joking, it's the truth. We laugh about it all the time. But we're quite we're quite deep thinkers, and not to say that what we're thinking is of any particular value. It's just that we like to think about the big stuff. And that's it. It's kind of sharing of yourself, and your darker sides as well a lot of the time.
And I think that's a great way to approach it too, because that's what's going to translate to the audience. Most people watching your film aren't going to think, oh, that was obviously on this kind of lens and, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're going to feel what you're showing. So if you guys are able to communicate that, like, you're going to accomplish what you want, and I think that's way better than just like, oh, this has got to be on this anamorphic lens, of course, because it's got to look like this. It's like, no, it's got to feel like this. I think that's way more important. Yeah. And I think even, when you were saying that after you got out of school, you felt like you didn't know all the technical stuff, like, you can learn that stuff, but like the feeling stuff, like, that's got to be, a lot of people don't have that, and a lot of people don't come out of school with that, like, and that's really where that's where it is, that's where the meat is, with any film and with any story.
I agree completely. And I think that I recognize that even as a kid I needed to be at the heart of drama, and I think that's like, and by that I mean, like, if there was any
she's a drama queen, y'all. Well, just kidding.
No, not that. More like if there's tension in a room, I want to know why. Like, who's had a fight? Why? What's going on? What is it your fault? And that it's that kind of thing. Like, I'm constantly I love people watching,
Oh,
So,
same girl.
my boyfriend and I will go out for, say we go for a cocktail at the weekend, and I don't talk because I'm staring at everybody. And it's different as well because I'm in Miami with him at the moment, so it's a completely different culture. So I just love.
Oh, that is what you do. That is what Miami's for. It's just like a museum of people and cars.
It's crazy. No, I know.
I know.
And I think that's it as well. I say that, I mentor a lot of students, and I think, that is a big part of being a director. I think, it's about noticing things and being really receptive to the world around you and trying, understanding why things are the way they are and why that person's reacted that way. And I think, the closer you can get to understanding basic psychology and basic kind of, human relations, I always say that I think it's better to read books about our brains and how our thoughts work than it is to read books about how to write scripts. I think that's far more valuable.
Yeah, because that gets to that gets to the meat of it, like that's what the characters are about. And I liked what you said earlier about how, I forget exactly how you said it, but like that psychology is such an important part of every story, not just a psychological thriller, not just a story about someone with a disorder. Like that's the root of everything, of why we act any way that we act, So yeah, I agree.
No, completely.
Because
There's so much feelings in filmmaking, so much, and I mean, from their characters' feelings to the feelings of the people that are making the film work with you to, the psychology that you create on set. It's so much of doing the job of directing is about managing people and about managing feelings. And I think, feelings on set get big, they all get big, everything, because you're in this small microcosm for a certain amount of time, and everything's pumped up, so there's a lot of energy. And I find that's kind of almost the most taxing part of directing, is just how you deal with people, how you speak to people. And not one actor is the same as the other, so you might have to calibrate how you just are with somebody. It's kind of hard to quantify, but it's you set the tone as a director, and that's about so much more than the things you say. It's about the energy you give off, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I want to get into that, but just to wrap up your and I apologize, not to wrap up, but go along to the point where you made this film, because you did a beautiful job with your actors. I will just say their performances were amazing. And that's definitely kudos to you, girl. And so from what we've read, you then after school did a bunch of short films, and then that transcended, led you to making this first feature film, A Banquet, right? Am I right, girl? We stalked you, right? Okay, I love that. Very good, very good. And if you'd like, would you like to hear a review on your film?
Yeah, if it's good, not if it's not good.
No, it's good.
Don't worry.
It's good. It's amazing. So our reactions, we watched A Banquet, and we'll let the listeners know what it was about before, they hear you. But our reaction was, Ruth does an incredible job with showing the complexities of how society has forcefully pressured us to decide who we want to be and what we want to do for the rest of our lives at an adolescent age, as well as a mother's enduring support for her daughter's haunting journey to discovery. The actors' performances were incredibly real and kept us guessing, allowing for a beautiful suspense throughout. In the end, there's almost a symbolic Jesus in the Garden of Eden moment between the mother and the daughter, demonstrating compassion and love in the most horrifying way. So that is
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, girl.
Really, it's a big thing. This is going to sound incredibly wanky, but it's a big thing to feel seen. And I think that's a lot of the work that I've made has really divided audiences. There's people that it just really, really chimes for, and other people who are like, what the fuck was that about? And I think, in a way, I would rather make Marmite work than just all right stuff. It's forgettable. But I definitely know from the reactions we've had to A Banquet so far that it's either it really speaks loudly to people or it doesn't at all. And I think that, from what you're saying back here, that kind of feedback, and particularly what, you know, your early comment on Betsy and, you know, having to make decisions about her future, that's such a driving force for this film. It was something that the original screenwriter was really passionate about, and that was a new concept to me, actually. It wasn't one of the things that drew me to the script originally, but it really became important when I understood where Justin was coming from, and the fact that he was a teacher and he's around these young people that have to make these monumentous decisions in the face of you know, being like hyper conscious about climate change, and the fact that there isn't really that much, you know, apparently much of a future for us to look forward to. So why are we investing so much of our, you know, in planning for it? So yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's really nice to hear your words.
Yeah, and it's cool to hear that. I don't know if motivation is the right word, but like what was behind his thought process in writing the script, because that totally translates to me hearing you say that. So that's really interesting. It's fun to hear that. You don't always get to hear, you know, what the screenwriter was thinking. And I'm curious, you said at first that wasn't what drew you to the script. What did draw you to the script? What led you to deciding to direct this particular story?
Well, I mean, a number of things, obviously. I mean, I kind of joke, because I say when I read the pee scene, that's what made me want to do it. That scene, I want to shoot the shit out of that scene. Like I love it, and I still love watching it. I just think that was one of the scenes that really, from the beginning, didn't change from Justin's conception, and lots of the script did change, but that was just, for me, kind of the holy grail of the film. And beyond that, I think there was obviously loads of stuff to do with themes that I could relate to, that I wanted to explore. I think there's something very specific about mother-daughter relationships that can be incredibly, you know, I want to say, like, can be toxic, but, you know, obviously can be very the power of maternal love is something that's always really fascinated me. And kind of, I suppose, the lengths mothers might go to, that boundary is kind of something that I've written about before myself. So there was those elements, and then I think just the characters themselves, just kind of, I you know, I felt I knew Holly and Betsy and Isabel, and Isabel, the younger sister, particularly, was somebody that I wanted to realize, because I loved that, you know, on the surface of all the other horror and the grotesque stuff that's going on in the film, for me, the greatest heartbreak and the greatest tragedy and horror is what happens to Isabel in that film. And so I wanted to chart that journey. But yeah, I think, you know, I normally write the work that I make. This is the first feature I've done, but it's also the first film I've directed that I haven't written. And when I read the script, I don't, all I can say is it felt like something I might have written. So, you know, I was always open to directing other people's writing, but, you know, this is the first thing I've read where I was like, oh, this feels so familiar. I don't know, it's like we're in each other's brains. And it was a really lovely process collaborating with Justin.
The amount of songs and sound effects on Jambox is insane. I can't believe these are almost all exclusive to their database. Plus, you can use the stems to make your own. So many resources.
It's wild and affordable. For the kind of indie films we make, we're probably only ever going to pay between $9.99 and $19.99 a month. That's cheaper than a lot of music we've licensed in the past.
And the composers that created this music work for huge studios and creators. We're talking directors like Scorsese and global brands like DJI. That's huge.
Yup, that's how you know they're good.
And because they love creators, they gave us a discount code to share with our fam. 10% off with code FEMME10.
Aw, how sweet. We love working with companies like Jambox that actually care and know what creators need. Connecting filmmakers with ridiculously good music and sound effects.
So check out jambox.io and remember to use our code FEMME10. That's FEMME 10.
Tessa and I are really excited to have Celtx as a sponsor for the Femme podcast this season because, fam, we've been using them for years and love their services.
Their all-in-one script writing and video production planning tools are used by media creators around the world, and there are lots of reasons to love it. Celtx Studio is cloud-based, meaning your project files are centralized, automatically backed up, accessible from anywhere on any device, and are completely secure. From scripts to reports, all documents follow industry standards, so you can trust your work is production ready. All tools in the Celtx Studio are interconnected to create a faster and easier to manage pre-production workflow. And Celtx is built for collaboration, with real-time collaborative script editing, secure sharing links, revision tracking, and comments features.
Head to Celtx.com, that's CELTX.com, to create your free 2-project Celtx account. When you sign up, you'll get unlimited access to Celtx's full suite of tools for your first 7 days.
Celtx, the all-in-one solution for script writing and video production planning. Yeah, and I think too, the film really feels like it's told through the female gaze, which is something that's like really important for us in our work. So that speaks a lot to him too, as a male writer that was able to create this story that, you know, because I'm sure if it was from a male director too, maybe it would feel a little different or whatever, you know, I'm sure a female putting her spin on it helps, but you know, the story is there from the screenplay. So it's really cool that he was able to write in that way. I think that's really impressive.
Yeah. No, he had all of that was there. And he, you know, a big preoccupation for him was about how historically and, you know, still currently, you know, that there's, I suppose the thinking around men controlling women's bodies. So, you know, in the film, it's male doctors, it's, you know, the male ice skating coach. It's about how, you know, men have had control over women's bodies for a long time. And, you know, for him, a lot of his source inspiration was to do with what was termed the generation of kind of fasting girls. So at the advent of when anorexia nervosa was kind of given a name really in the Victorian times, officially, because I'm sure there was incidents of it prior to that. But the idea was that, you know, women who were controlling their food and controlling their bodies were getting a voice at times when they wouldn't have otherwise. And so, you know, the prophetesses, for example, that were part of the source inspiration for Justin, were examples of women who otherwise wouldn't have been heard by men, but were when they were speaking with the voice of God. So that too was something that was all fresh to me. You know, I mean, I know it in the background, I know that sort of exists, but to sort of pinpoint that and to think about that and to think about Betsy as someone who, you know, who suddenly becomes very important and special because she's, you know, she's been chosen or she's speaking for something bigger than herself. That was really interesting.
Yeah. And I think you did a really good job too of always keeping us guessing as the audience, you know, because we're put in this world where we are able to believe that she could be completely telling the truth and she could be, you know, this wisdom from heaven or whatever, you know, but we also realize that, oh, but the grandma could be correct. She could be totally faking it, or she could have this disorder that she, you know, is just hallucinating or what, like we are in a world in this film where any of those could be completely the truth, you know? So I think that you've created a really great world with that we are left guessing and it all seems just as reasonable as the other thing, you know?
Well, I'm glad that that's something that was, I don't want to say enjoyable, but like that kept you interested as an audience member rather than turned you off. Because that was, for me, I was always working with Betsy and Jessica, who plays Betsy, and I would look at her performance from 3 perspectives. Like she is either totally telling the truth, or she believes she's telling the truth, or she's fucking with them. And that's each of those was a really interesting lens to look at, you know, Jessica's performance through. Is like, does it fit one or more of those? In which case, that's great. Let's move forward, kind of thing. But there was also then how Holly saw her and the moments where Holly was having, you know, Holly, I think, goes on a journey through all of those possibilities till the end where she believes her.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you could really see that she's stuck in this battle of, I want to believe and hear my daughter and give her that like space, but also like, I'm my mother and I have to make sure I'm doing the mom thing right. And I like loved that dilemma of like, I need a, if I need to check her out to like a psychiatric care, like, isn't that the best thing? Or is the best thing like letting like just me being there for her? And I
Yeah.
really loved that predicament of like the complexity of that situation that she was put in.
Well, that's it. And obviously Holly brings with it, she brings to it her own history and her own, complicated relationship with her
That was
mother.
interesting. That was really interesting to see like divulge. And I'm going to be honest, the opening scene threw me off. I'm still like kind of wrecked trying to piece together what that really meant. To be like, yeah, completely fair. I'm still like trying to like piece that part together. And because it is a history of her, and I think it also kind of set maybe the stage purposely for us to not trust the mom either. And that's like, yeah, it was definitely a mind bender.
We wanted to set the tone. That was, the film didn't always begin with the tragedy that's there. That the fact that the father wasn't present was something that had happened in the history of the film. It was never on screen, and I wanted to bring it to the fore because I wanted an audience to just know this is not going to be a fun movie. This is going to be uncomfortable. And this, I think, like a
Smart.
comparison would be like not Melancholy, I always mix them up, Midsommar. So Astor's film, where you see, I suppose I shouldn't say because I shouldn't ruin it, but there's an event at the beginning of the film where you go, okay. And I wanted that same thing, I wanted you to feel like, right, if this is where it starts, where the fuck is it going, kind of thing. So that was, and I wanted it to be gross and extreme. And everything. I like a lot of blood. I like a lot of vomit in my films. That's sort of seems to be my trend. If there's no vomiting, it's not a Paxton film. That's for sure.
No, I think that's really smart too, because like you said, it I don't want to say warns the audience, but it allows the audience to be like, okay, this is the tone. This is what we have to be ready for. And because, not everybody is into that kind of thing. So it is kind of a warning, but it also allows you to just jump right into that too from the very start. You're not opening with some like dry comedy thing that people are like, okay, so what's the tone for this? Like, you're just going straight into it. So it's a good way to really, because that's the thing, is you have to grab the audience from the very beginning of your film, so that's a great way to do that.
No, I'm really, it's, when you watch your own film, there's moments that you really enjoy rewatching, and then other moments that you're like, oh, I maybe didn't quite get what I wanted there, or that day was so compromised that we didn't get enough coverage, or, but the opening, I always enjoy watching it, and just, kind of if I am in an audience watching it with people, feeling it sort of land. It's fun.
Oh, it lands, girl. It lands. I love it. Well, is there more works that you're interested in writing or working with other writers to direct on in the same vein? Since, like you just mentioned, it's a Paxton film. We have some gore, we have some throwing up, some extra little deep-rooted psychological battles. I love it.
I think I think like my work to date is all full of that. So it's unlikely to change. I'm definitely interested in the psych and kind of the darker side of the psych. But I wouldn't say I'm a horror director. I think that's something that's emerging with the kind of response we're getting to the film, is that you can see that you're being kind of classed as a female horror director. And
right.
I totally get that, there's lots of horror tropes in the film, and I've definitely leaned into that on purpose. But I wouldn't say that, I see a career for myself directing purely horror, but I definitely see drama with a darker edge, and so like, I am attached to direct another kind of horror that is definitely, that's what it's a possession film, and it's a horror. But the other films that I'm kind of involved in are, in the moment, what I'm writing or trying to write is just a big love story, really, with lots of sex in it, and there's vomit in there too. So it's kind of a very human love epic thing. That's kind of on the cards next. And then, yeah, I mean, I've got a film that I'm going to direct with which is being written by a very good friend of mine called Deborah Joan Hayward, and she is a filmmaker too. She's a director, and so she's adapting this novel, and I'll direct that. And that's not, that's not overtly like supernatural or horrific, but it's definitely dark.
Mhm.
So yeah, I imagine it'll always be dark. But I like to think I'm funny as well. So, I wouldn't want to sort of
I love that. I want to see a Paxton dark comedy. Like, I feel like you
I
would
think I could
nail
do a
it.
pitch black comedy for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see that. That is so exciting. I love that you're like already like in development with all these other great works. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really exciting to hear. 'Cause it's how do you feel like, do you believe like where you're at right now in your career, like you're here, or does it feel surreal still?
It's a mixture of things. The whole process that's happened since we finished a banquet, and kind of with it being sold to IFC, and then the premieres we've had, and I guess the press that I'm doing as a result of it, that's so new. I mean, I'm just totally traversing brand new territory here. No short film I've made has gone through a process like this, so this is
Oh,
very,
that's
very
awesome.
new. But I would say that, like, I feel it's been a long time coming. I mean, I have like I'm a mixture of feeling like it was time for me to make my first feature. I was ready. But I also think you're very privileged and lucky to make films. So I don't think anybody is, like due a feature. I think that's really dangerous if you start to think that way. But certainly I'd paid my dues. I have a body of short work. If you think about the way the industry works in the UK, it was sort of time for me to get the opportunity to make that feature length version. But the irony is that A Banquet wasn't supposed to be that. That was not going to be my first film. So it kind of came in there, and it all moved and happened really, really quickly. And I think, I haven't really had a day where I don't go to set doubting myself, and that's got a lot to do with my own makeup and the kind of thought patterns I have. But this is the first set I've been on where, like, midway through it, I thought, I think I know what I'm doing. Like, I think I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And so that part of it makes me feel like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. And I definitely feel ready to tell bigger stories on a bigger scale, because A Banquet, while it was a feature and it was funded, it was very low budget. So, it would be nice to have more choice, more time, more time to play, these kind of things. So so there's all that. But I would say overall, I'm just very grateful to have had the opportunity. It's, there's a lot of people that would love to be doing what we're doing and don't get that chance. So, I'm always aware of that.
Yeah. And I think that, you taking the time to create this body of work before going into this, and now having your first feature and having it be picked up, and, like having some success with it, like really is just like, it solidifies your foundation. Like you can go anywhere from here, So yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm excited to
Paxton
see these things in
Films.
the
I'm
works.
excited, girl.
Well, this is the thing, though. This is the major difference about making a short film and making a feature, if you're lucky, is that, people, not everybody watches short films. They don't get the same, exhibition and the same attention as a feature. So there's something very exciting about that. And there's also something really exposing and terrifying that, so the film's going to be released in the US on the 18th of February. And there's a bit of me that's like really not wanting it to happen because I'm just so nervous about what the response will be, So it's a mixed thing. But then at the same time, you'll watch movies by seasoned filmmakers, and you yourself will go, oh, it was all right. I liked it, whatever. And you're like, that's just the nature of it. You can't make a perfect film. It's there are going to be people that like it and people that don't. And that's part of growing as a filmmaker, is accepting that, I think.
Yeah. I think for me too, when I watch like independent films now, knowing what all goes into it, I'm like, even if I didn't love it, as long as there wasn't something that was like glaringly bad about it, I'm still impressed that they made it and it looks good,
No, I
Absolutely.
completely agree with that. I really do. And I think particularly, with early features, it's, of course of course you're going to make mistakes. You're always learning. If there was a formula to making perfect movies, then, we'd have found it by now.
Mhm.
It's, they are there to be artistic endeavors. And I think the fact that film is a business is there's a double-edged sword to that.
Yeah.
It's an art form that relies on the patronage of other people, of money, and there's times when it's really hard that I wish, I think, why am I not just a fucking painter, but no, it's also, when it's good, it's good. That's
Yeah.
it's the highest
That's it.
high.
Yeah, I feel like that sums up filmmaking perfectly.
I know. I love that it's something you definitely have to always keep in the back of your mind is the commerciality of your film and like where it's going to be showcased and
Yep.
how like did that impact your directing as well for this film in particular and how far you were going to take a scene or you know
No, I would never have limits on that. If I mean,
good
oh
for
God,
you.
no,
Yes.
no. Like I don't, I couldn't compromise that way. But I think that I was fortunate in this particular setup because the financing was so low. It wasn't reliant on making money.
Mhm.
It was like the film didn't have to do amazingly well for me, for me to be financed.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
It
is
was,
kind of the perk of independent
yeah,
films, I feel like, and that's what we like we're like, in financial planning and how do we get investments and returns and all that. And then I'm like, but our budget's so small. Like if someone just wants to believe and invest in us, that is who we want to target because it's just so small. It's so small of a budget. Like what can you do? But anyways, I digress. You were
no,
saying.
but that's it. You're absolutely right. And I think that, I got a small insight into how things might work on a bigger scale with bigger budgets and kind
For
of chunks
sure.
that might be taken away from you, and the fact that it might be cast dependent. And I was really, really fortunate in that I wasn't like, I know that some films would be financed on the basis of cast. So, you would have to cast someone that was meaningful, that had value.
Right.
My cast they all did, of course, but I could pick who I wanted.
Mhm.
That was what was a dream. I was allowed, I didn't have any pressure on me. And so, I was able to pick, wonderful talent without any kind of pressure there. And I think that's something I would struggle with. I think if down the line would be if, there was somebody, I don't know, if I wasn't allowed to cast the person I thought was right for the role. That seems really counterintuitive to me, but I also
Yeah.
understand it is a business and there's so much of the post side of it and the distribution and the exhibition side of it that is like, I don't have a clue, that I'm just learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I really don't know. And I accept that.
Yeah. Which actually is kind of a nice position to be in, that
Yeah,
you don't know, that you don't
basically.
have to worry about,
Yeah. I remain clueless and I'm quite happy, quite comfortably ignorant, actually.
Yeah.
Like the technical stuff, like, yeah, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was going to glance here because I have my notes about the producer that you worked with.
Yeah.
Yeah, you worked with a couple producers, I see.
So there was a few producers, but my main point of contact and my main support was Leonora Darby, and that's who brought the script to me. So she and this is her first feature as well, and she
That's
is,
so cool.
yeah. I have, again, I hate to use cliche language, but I have never felt so seen by someone. She knows, she can read me, and she really helped me believe I could make this film from the outset. And we just had a general meeting to discuss each other's slates, like what I was actually writing and what she was working on and the material they had at Tea Shop.
Mm-hmm.
And when she talked about a banquet, I was immediately like, really, really curious. And so she sent me the script and I sent her my latest short film. And I read, she watched the same afternoon, and by the end of the day, we were like, let's get married, let's do this. I love it, I love it, I love you, you know. And yeah, it was an amazing relationship from start to finish. Just completely supported. It was dreamy.
Oh,
I love that so much. It's so good when you can find those people, like you and your
Yes.
DP, you and your producer. Like that is,
Yes.
it's like a marriage. Like you said, it's like you fall in love with
Oh.
this person.
Oh yeah, you know, I have a habit of falling in love with everybody on set, so it's
Yeah.
like, you know, yeah.
That's
Including
amazing.
Lindsay Duncan. I think everybody fell in love with Lindsay Duncan that plays June. We were all kind of in
Yeah.
awe of her. She's spectacular.
We did.
So
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, to wrap up, I would love a couple things. First of all,
Yeah.
if you could tell our listeners where they can find a banquet. By the time that they listen to this, it will be a little bit after the release date, but where they can watch it. And then also where they can find you, any social media websites, any of that kind of stuff.